The knock at midnight. The night was quiet, too quiet. The human sat alone in his small house on the edge of the colony. He had grown used to silence, used to the sound of the wind pressing against the walls and the hum of machines in the distance. But this night was different. There was a sound, a knock, soft, hesitant, like someone was afraid to be heard. He frowned and looked at the door. Who would come at this hour? He stood, slowly, his heart uneasy. Another knock came. Weak and trembling, he moved closer, his hand hovering near the lock. "Who's there?" He called. His voice sounded stronger than he felt. No answer, just a faint whisper, almost lost in the cold air. "I can cook. I can clean. I can be quiet." The human froze. The words were strange, desperate. Not the kind of thing a neighbor would say. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. He opened the door a little, and the dim light from inside fell across the porch. There she was, an alien girl. Thin and shaking, her clothes were torn, her skin pale with cold, and her large eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She looked up at him, her lips trembling. "Please," she whispered. "I can cook, I can clean. I can be quiet." He stared, his mind racing. Why was she here? Why would she say such things? She lowered her gaze, as if expecting him to shut the door, as if she had heard that sound too many times before. For a long moment, he said nothing. He only watched her, noticing the dirt on her hands, the way she hugged herself tightly, the way her voice shook when she tried to speak again. "No one will take me in," she said softly. "But I can work. I will not make trouble. Please." The human's chest tightened. Something in her voice reached deep inside him. It was not just hunger or cold, he heard. It was fear. It was loneliness. He glanced down the empty street. No one else was around. Only shadows and the hum of distant lamps. Whoever she was running from, she had come here to his door. He remembered the rules of the colony. Strangers were dangerous. Runaways could bring trouble. Harboring one could mean punishment, but he also remembered something else. His own nights of silence, his own life of being forgotten. He knew the look in her eyes. It was the look of someone who had nothing left. He opened the door wider. The girl gasped softly, as if she had not expected kindness. She stepped forward, weakly, like her legs barely held her. The human moved aside and let her enter. The warmth of the small house wrapped around her. She stood there, silent, her hands twisting together as though she feared she might still be sent away. He closed the door behind her. His mind was full of questions, but he stayed quiet. He could see that even standing was hard for her. "Sit," he said at last, pointing to the chair near the table. His voice was firm but not unkind. She nodded quickly and sat, folding herself small, as if to take up the least space possible. Her glowing eyes flicked up at him, then down again. The human studied her, the scars on her arms, the bruises half hidden under the torn cloth, the way she flinched at every creak of the house. She had been through something dark. He could feel it. And though he did not yet understand why, he knew this moment would change everything. The decision. The human stood by the door. His mind heavy, the alien girl sat at his table, small and fragile. Her glowing eyes stared at the floor, her hands trembling in her lap. He did not know what to do if anyone discovered her here. There would be questions. He could lose his work, his home, maybe even his freedom. She whispered again, her voice breaking the silence. "I will not bother you. I can cook. I can clean. I can stay quiet." The human's chest tightened. Her words sounded like a chant, like something she had been forced to say many times before. He wondered how many doors had shut in her face before she reached his. He walked to the counter and poured water into a glass. He set it down in front of her. She looked at it as if it were a gift from the stars. Slowly, with shaking fingers, she drank, He studied her in the dim light. She was not dangerous, not strong, not armed. She looked like a shadow of someone who had suffered too much. But still, the danger was real. The colony did not forgive those who broke the rules. Runaways were supposed to be reported. Strangers were meant to be kept outside. He leaned against the wall, torn between fear and compassion. His thoughts raced. If he turned her away, she might not survive the night. The cold was sharp, and the streets were not safe. Her voice drew him back, soft and trembling. "If you want me to go?" "I will go." She stood, swaying. As if even standing was too much for her body, something inside him broke. He could not watch her walk back into the dark, not when she looked so lost, so fragile. "Sit down," he said firmly. His voice left no room for argument. She blinked, surprised, then obeyed, folding herself back into the chair like a child caught between fear and hope. He sighed, rubbing his hand across his face. He had lived a quiet life, far from trouble. He never asked for company, never asked for danger, but now, here she was. And somehow he could not ignore her. "Why my door?" he asked at last. His words were sharp but not cruel. Her eyes lifted slowly, glowing faintly in the warm light. "I heard humans are kinder," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. He froze. Kind. Was that all she was searching for? A little kindness. The silence between them grew heavy, outside. The wind rattled against the house. But inside, everything felt still. The human made his choice. It was not the safe choice, not the smart one. But it was the one his heart pushed him toward. "You can stay," he said quietly, her head lifted fast. Her eyes wide with disbelief. "Stay," she repeated, as if she had never heard that word spoken to her before. He nodded once, "But you follow my rules. No noise, no trouble, no questions." She nodded quickly. Almost too quickly. "Yes, I promise, I can do that. I will not be a burden." For the first time, a small spark lit in her eyes. It was not joy yet, but it was something close. Something fragile and new. The human felt a strange weight lift from his chest, though another heavier one settled. His life had just changed, and there was no going back. He moved to the old couch and sat down. Watching her carefully, she curled up on the chair. Hugging herself for warmth, her lips moved, whispering silent words he could not hear. Perhaps a prayer, perhaps a memory. He leaned back. Closing his eyes, he had made his decision. Tomorrow. The consequences would come, but tonight, for the first time in a long time, his house was not silent. Asterisk. The first meal, the morning light crept slowly through the cracks of the shutters. The human stirred awake on the couch, the faint smell of something burning reaching his nose. He sat up quickly, his heart beating fast. For a moment, he had forgotten the night before. But then he saw her, the alien girl, standing in the small kitchen. Smoke curling from a pan in her hands. She looked up at him, startled, her glowing eyes wide. "I can cook," she said quickly, her voice nervous. "I can make food for you." He rose and walked closer. The pan was black at the edges. Whatever she had tried to cook was charred and hard. She stared at it with trembling lips. Afraid he might throw her out, the human sighed. He took the pan from her gently and set it aside. "You'll burn the house down like that," he muttered. Her shoulders sank. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her hands clutched at her torn clothes. I wanted to be useful." He paused, watching her shake. She wasn't lying. She truly wanted to prove she could stay. Even if she didn't know how. "Sit," he told her, pointing to the chair again. She obeyed instantly, folding herself small, almost vanishing into the corner of the room. He opened a small cupboard and pulled out food packets. He wasn't much of a cook either, but he knew how to heat simple meals. He poured water into the pot, dropped in dried grains, and stirred until steam rose. The alien girl watched him with quiet amazement. Her eyes followed every movement of his hands as if she was learning something sacred. Finally, he set a bowl in front of her. The steam rose, carrying a warm, simple smell. She looked at it, confused at first, then leaned forward. "Breathing it in, eat," he said. Her hands trembled as she lifted the spoon. She took a small bite, then another. Her glowing eyes softened. And for the first time since he saw her, she closed them and let out a breath of relief. The human sat down across from her, eating his own share in silence. But he couldn't help watching her. Every bite looked like it was pulling her back from the edge of collapse. Halfway through, her lips moved again. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice cracked. But her eyes were brighter now. He nodded, pretending not to notice the tears that slipped down her cheeks as she kept eating. When she finished, she carefully placed the bowl down and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. She looked up at him, uncertain. "Did I do something wrong last night?" "With the food?" He shook his head. "You tried," he said simply. "That matters more than the taste." Her eyes widened at those words, as if no one had ever spoken them to her before. She whispered again, almost to herself, "Tried. Matters." The human leaned back, watching her carefully. He wanted to ask about the scars, about the way she flinched at every sound. But he held his tongue. It wasn't time yet. She suddenly stood and picked up the bowls. Moving to wash them, she scrubbed with focus. Her hands quick and careful, determined not to leave a single mark of dirt behind. He realized then that she wasn't just trying to survive. She was trying to belong, and though he hadn't said it aloud, part of him knew she already had. Asterisk, the hidden marks. The day passed slowly. The human went about his chores, fixing small tools and checking the outside machines. The alien girl stayed inside, cleaning the floor with careful movements. Her hands moved quickly, but her eyes stayed down, always avoiding his gaze. He came back in the afternoon carrying a small box of parts. The house smelled faintly of soap. She had scrubbed everything: tables, chairs, even the old shelves that had been gathering dust for years. "You didn't need to do all this," he said. Dropping the box with a thud, she looked up, startled, then lowered her head again. "I want to be useful," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but there was steel hidden inside it, as if she had said these words too many times before. He sighed and walked past her, but something caught his eye. She was bending to pick up a cloth from the floor, and the sleeve of her torn shirt slipped down, revealing her arm. His breath froze. The skin there was scarred, long pale lines that crisscrossed like cruel marks of punishment. Some were old, faded, but others were newer, red and raw. The girl noticed his stare and quickly pulled her sleeve back down. Her hands shook as she pressed the fabric against her arm. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. The human felt anger rise inside him. Not at her, but at whoever had done this. He opened his mouth to speak, but she whispered first, her voice trembling, "It's nothing. Please, don't ask." Her glowing eyes flicked up for just a moment, filled with fear, begging him to let it stay buried. He clenched his fists. His instinct was to demand answers, to know who had hurt her, but he saw the way her shoulders curled, the way she shrank into herself, and he stopped. "All right," he said quietly, his voice softer now. "I won't ask." She blinked, surprised, as if no one had ever respected her silence before. Slowly, she nodded, relief washing over her face. Still, the image of those scars burned in his mind. He sat down heavily at the table, his thoughts dark. She moved quickly, almost desperately, to bring him water, to wipe the table clean, to do anything that kept her busy. As she worked, he noticed something else. Every time the floor creaked or a shadow moved near the window, She flinched. Her body reacted like someone expecting a blow, expecting chains to be thrown around her again when she thought he wasn't looking. She pulled her collar tighter, hiding another mark near her neck. The truth was written on her body even if she never spoke it. The human felt a storm inside. He wanted to protect her, to tell her she was safe here. But he also feared the weight of what that meant if others came looking for her. If they saw those marks, they would know she had run. And they would not forgive him for keeping her. Later that night, after dinner, she sat quietly by the fire. The glow of the flames reflected in her eyes. She held her knees close to her chest, her chin resting on them. The human watched her, wondering how someone so broken could still sit with dignity. Her scars told a story of suffering, but her silence told an even louder story. She had learned to endure, to hide, to survive. He didn't speak. He didn't ask, but inside, he promised himself one thing. Whoever had left those marks on her body would not touch her again. Not while she was under his roof, and though he hadn't said the words, she seemed to sense it for the first time that night. Her shoulders eased, just a little, as if some of the weight she carried had finally begun to lift. The warning the next morning began quietly. The human fixed a broken pipe outside while the alien girls swept the floor inside. For a moment, it felt almost normal, like two people simply sharing a house. But normal never lasted long as the human returned from the yard. Wiping sweat from his brow, he noticed something unusual. A stranger stood near the edge of the street. Cloaked in dark cloth, the figure was tall, unmoving, watching the houses with careful eyes. The human's stomach tightened. He recognized the look. Someone searching, someone hunting. He stepped inside and closed the door firmly. The girl looked up, startled by the sudden sound. She froze when she saw his face. "What is it?" she whispered. Her voice shook. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window and peered through the small crack. The cloaked figure was still there, slowly moving down the street, asking questions of neighbors. People pointed nervously, shaking their heads. Some shut their doors quickly, not wanting trouble. The human turned back to her, his voice low. "Someone's looking for you." Her eyes widened, glowing brighter with fear. She clutched the edge of the table as if it were the only solid thing left in her world. "They've come," she whispered. Her voice broke. "They always come." The human's chest tightened. He wanted to ask who they were, but he already knew the answer. Whoever had scarred her. Whoever had chased her across the streets at night. They had not stopped. He walked closer. Kneeling so his eyes met hers. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "Do not open the door for anyone. Do not speak. Do you understand?" She nodded quickly, her hands shaking. "Yes. I promise." The knock came sooner than he expected. Heavy and loud, the human stood still. His jaw tight, he opened the door just a crack, enough to face the man outside. The cloaked figure's eyes were sharp, alien yet cold. "I'm looking for someone," the voice rasped. "A runaway, small, female, dangerous. Have you seen her?" The human kept his face calm. His heart pounded. "No," he said simply. "Haven't seen anyone like that?" The stranger's eyes narrowed. "You live alone, don't you?" "Yes," the human replied, his tone steady. "Always have." The silence stretched. The stranger scanned him, as if trying to read the truth in his face. Then, slowly, the figure stepped back. "If you see her, report it. She is not what she seems." The human shut the door quietly. Locking it tight, he turned, and the alien girl was standing in the corner. Hidden in the shadows, her whole body trembled, tears shining in her glowing eyes. "They'll kill me if they find me," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Or worse, take me back." He stared at her, anger rising like fire inside him. "They won't," he said sharply. "Not while you're here." She blinked, shocked by the certainty in his voice. For a moment, she looked at him not as a stranger, but as something more, someone she could trust. The human knew he had crossed a line. This was no longer about kindness. It was about survival. By protecting her, he was choosing a path that would change his life forever. And outside, in the shadows of the street, the hunters were not finished. They would return. Stronger, more determined. But so would he. The chase begins. The human barely slept that night. Every time the wind rattled the shutters, he thought it was the hunters at his door. Every creak of the old house made his muscles tighten. He kept a tool beside his bed, not a weapon, but something heavy enough to buy time if trouble came. The alien girl curled up on the chair, her glowing eyes half open. Even as she drifted, she did not sleep deeply. Her body twitched at every sound, her breath shallow, as if she had lived too long in fear to truly rest. When the dawn came, it brought no peace. The colony street outside was restless. Neighbors whispered to each other. Shadows moved between houses. The cloaked figures were searching again. The human stood at the window, his jaw set. He could not keep her here forever, not if they kept coming closer. She rose quietly and walked to him, her hands clutching her torn sleeve. "They won't stop," she whispered. "If they know I'm here, they'll tear this place apart." Her voice shook. But there was no panic, only a resigned fear. As if she had lived this chase many times before. He turned to her, his voice firm. "Then we won't let them know." That evening, the knock came again, heavier, sharper. The human motioned for her to hide. She slipped silently into the small storage room. Folding herself behind crates, her breath caught in her throat. The human opened the door halfway. A different hunter stood there this time. Taller, armored under the cloak. "We know she's near," the voice hissed. "If you've seen her, tell us now. She is dangerous. She will destroy everything you have." The human's hand tightened on the edge of the door. His voice was calm but cold. "I haven't seen anyone. Only dust and shadows walk this street." The hunter's eyes narrowed. For a moment, silence pressed between them. Then the hunter leaned closer. "You should be careful, human. Kindness can kill you." The man closed the door slowly, locking it tight, his heart hammered. But he didn't show it. He turned toward the storage room. She stepped out, her face pale, her body shaking. "You risk everything for me," she whispered. "Why?" The human stared at her scars, at the fear she carried in every step. His answer came without hesitation. "Because you deserve better than chains." Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, her glowing eyes filled with something new. Something fragile trust. The days that followed were tense. The hunters grew bolder, searching houses. Dragging strangers from the streets, the human knew it was only a matter of time before they returned to his door with more force. So he made a choice. They could not stay here. They had to move. Late one night, he packed a small bag. Food packets, water, and tools. She watched silently. Her hands clenched. "We're leaving?" she asked, her voice almost too soft to hear. He nodded. "If we stay, they'll find you. If we go, maybe we'll have a chance." She hesitated, then whispered, "I'll follow you." When the moon was high, they slipped out the back door. The streets were quiet, but danger lurked in every shadow. The human kept his steps steady, his eyes sharp. She walked behind him, light and silent, like a shadow herself. They didn't make it far before a figure stepped out of the darkness. A hunter blocking the path. The alien girl froze, her breath sharp. The human stepped in front of her, his body tense. The hunter's voice was cold. "You can't run forever, human. She belongs to us." The chase had begun, and there would be no turning back. The truth shared, the forest outside the colony was dark and full of whispers. The human and the alien girl ran until their legs ached. Branches scratched their arms, roots tugged at their feet. But they did not stop. Behind them, the echoes of pursuit faded. Yet fear clung to every breath. At last, when their lungs burned and their bodies trembled, the human found a hollow under an old tree. He motioned for her to crawl inside. She obeyed quickly. Folding herself into the shadows, he sat at the entrance, listening, waiting for any sound of hunters. Minutes passed, then hours. The night deepened. The forest grew still. Only the faint hum of insects filled the silence. Inside the hollow, the alien girl hugged her knees. Her glowing eyes reflected the dim moonlight. She looked at the human, her lips trembling. "You don't understand," she whispered. Her voice was small, heavy with something unsaid. "You risked your life for me, but you don't know what I am." The human turned his head. His voice low. "Then tell me." She shook her head, fear tightening her chest. "If I tell you, you'll send me away." "Everyone does." His gaze did not waver. "Steady and calm. Try me," he said. Her eyes closed, her body shivered. And the words spilled like a wound finally opened. "I was born a servant. My kind are taken young, chained. Taught to speak only the same words: cook, clean, be quiet. That's all we're worth to them. We are trained to please, never to live." The human's hands clenched into fists. Anger rose in him, but he kept silent, letting her speak. "They called me property," she continued, her voice breaking. "When I grew older, they marked me with scars. They said it was to remind me I belonged to them. When I tried to fight, they hurt me worse. When I tried to escape before, they dragged me back and burned my arms so I would never forget." She pulled her sleeve up slowly, revealing the scars he had seen before, long lines carved deep into her skin. They glowed faintly in the moonlight, cruel reminders of her suffering. Tears slid down her cheeks, but she did not wipe them. "I thought I would die like that. Silent, forgotten, but I heard stories. About humans, about how you are different. That some of you show kindness, even when there is nothing to gain. I wanted to believe it, even if it killed me." Her voice cracked, her body shaking as if the memory still chained her. "So I ran again. I kept running until I found your door. I thought, maybe this time someone would open it." The human reached out, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. She flinched at first, but then slowly her trembling eased. "You were right to believe," he said quietly. "You are not property, not here, not ever again." Her glowing eyes widened. Shimmering with disbelief, she searched his face for a lie, but found none. Her lips parted, a breath caught in her throat. No one had ever told her that before. No one had ever seen her as more than chains and silence. She whispered, almost afraid to believe her own voice. Then, "I am free." The human nodded once, firm and steady. "Yes, as long as I live." "You are free." A sound escaped her lips, not quite a sob, not quite a laugh, but something caught between hope and pain. For the first time, her tears did not fall from despair, but from a fragile beginning of trust. And in that hollow under the old tree, the human realized the truth. This was no longer about hiding her. This was about protecting something precious, something that had been broken but not destroyed. For the first time, the alien girl believed she might have a future. The confrontation the night under the tree gave them a small taste of safety, but the human knew it would not last. By dawn, the forest stirred with voices, not of birds, but of hunters. Their steps were heavy, their commands sharp. They were close, too close. The human rose quietly, his hand on the girl's shoulder. She opened her glowing eyes, weary but alert. "We have to move," he whispered. She nodded. though her body still trembled with exhaustion. They crept through the undergrowth, each step careful. Every crack of a twig made her flinch. Every shadow looked like an enemy. The human stayed close, his eyes scanning the trees. His heart beat steady, but his jaw was tight. It didn't take long before the sound of footsteps grew louder. The hunters were spreading out, driving them toward a clearing. The human cursed under his breath. He realized they were being herded. Trapped at the edge of the clearing, 3 figures waited, cloaked and tall. Their weapons gleamed faintly in the dim light. One of them stepped forward. His voice cold. "You cannot run forever. Human, give her to us. She belongs where she was made to serve." The alien girl's knees buckled. She gripped the human's sleeve, her whispers sharp with fear. "Please, don't let them take me. Please." The human stepped forward, shielding her with his body. His voice carried, strong and steady. "She belongs to no one." The hunters laughed. A harsh sound that echoed through the trees. "You think you can protect her? You are one, we are many. Humans are weak. They break easily." The human's eyes hardened. "Maybe," he said. "But humans don't let chains decide who lives and who doesn't." The nearest hunter lunged forward. Weapon raised, the human reacted fast. Grabbing a heavy branch from the ground, he swung it with all his strength. The crack of wood against metal rang out. The hunter stumbled back, surprised. The girl gasped. She had never seen anyone fight for her before. Her glowing eyes widened as the human planted his feet, refusing to move. Another hunter advanced. Striking with sharp precision, the human blocked once, twice. Each blow sending shocks of pain through his arms. His branch splintered, but his grip never loosened behind him. The girl pressed her hands against her mouth. Her heart pounded. Every instinct told her to hide, to stay silent, but now, watching him fight, something stirred inside her, something she thought she had lost. The hunters regrouped, circling. "You cannot win," one spat. "Hand her over and we will spare you." The human's breath came heavy, but his voice was firm. "I already made my choice." The words echoed through the clearing. Sharper than any weapon, the hunters lunged together. But the human moved with stubborn defiance, dodging, striking. Refusing to fall, he took hits, bruises forming. Blood trickling down his arm, yet still he stood. His eyes burned with fire. In that moment, the alien girl understood. He was not fighting only for her freedom. He was fighting to prove she was worth more than chains. Worth more than silence. Her trembling hands clenched. A memory sparked. She had once known a song. A sound her people used before they were broken into servitude. Her lips parted, and for the first time in years, she made a sound that was not a whisper, not a plea, but a cry of defiance. The hunters froze, startled. The sound carried through the forest, sharp and strange. It distracted them long enough for the human to strike again, driving them back, breathing hard. The human stood tall. The hunters glared. "Retreating into the shadows, this isn't over," one growled. Before vanishing into the trees, silence filled the clearing once more. The human dropped the broken branch, his chest rising and falling. The alien girl stared at him, her eyes wet with tears. But this time they were not tears of fear. "You fought for me," she whispered. Even when you could have walked away, the human met her gaze. His voice steady. "I told you, you're free. And I'll fight anyone who tries to take that from you." In that clearing, something stronger than fear bound them together. Not chains, but choice. The escape plan. The forest was quiet again. But the silence felt heavy. The human leaned against a tree. His arms sore, his breath ragged. The alien girl knelt beside him, her glowing eyes wide with worry. She reached out as if to touch his wounds, then pulled back, unsure. "You're hurt," she whispered. He shook his head. Brushing away the blood on his sleeve, "I've had worse," he muttered, though every muscle in his body screamed otherwise. His eyes stayed sharp, watching the shadows. "They'll be back," the girl hugged herself. Her shoulders tense. "They won't stop. I know them. They'll chase us until I'm in chains again." Her voice cracked. The human's jaw tightened. He looked at her, then past her, as if seeing something far away. "Then we can't stay here," he said. "We need a plan." Her lips parted. A whisper barely leaving them. "A plan." "Yes," he answered firmly. "If we stay. They'll corner us. If we move, maybe we can outsmart them." He paused, then added, "I have a ship. It's old, half broken, but it still flies." Her glowing eyes widened. "A ship." He nodded. "If we can reach it before they find us again, we can leave the colony, get far enough that their reach won't matter." The idea hung in the air, fragile but bright, like a spark in the dark. The alien girl stared at him, hope trembling at the edge of her fear. "Leave all of this?" "Yes," he said. "Leave the hunters, leave the chains. Start somewhere new for the first time." She let out a shaky breath that almost sounded like relief. "I want that," she whispered, "more than anything." That night, they hid in the hollow of the tree again. The human laid out the plan in a low voice, marking the path in the dirt with a stick. "We move at dawn. We cut through the ridge. Follow the dry riverbed that will take us close to the scrapyard. The ship is hidden there." She leaned closer, studying the lines he drew. Her hand hovered above the dirt, then pointed. "But here hunters often pass if they see us." He nodded, impressed. "Then we move faster. Take the risk." Her lips trembled, but her eyes burned with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes." The human looked at her scars, at the quiet strength hidden beneath her trembling voice. He realized she was no longer only a frightened girl begging at his door. She was becoming something else, someone ready to fight for her own freedom. When dawn broke, they began the journey. The forest stretched wide, the ridge rising like a jagged wall. The human led the way, each step measured, each breath steady. The alien girl followed, silent but strong, her glowing eyes watching every shadow at the dry riverbed. They crouched low. Hunters' voices drifted on the wind, harsh and guttural. The human motioned for her to stay still. His hand gripped a stone, ready if one of them drew too close. The hunters passed, their footsteps heavy. The two remained frozen until the last echo faded. Only then did they move again, hearts pounding. By midday, the scrapyard came into view, rusted metal, broken ships, and scraps of forgotten machines lay scattered like bones of giants. The alien girl stared in awe and fear. "Your ship is here." He pointed to the far edge where a half-buried hull rested under a tarp. "It's not pretty, but it'll fly." She smiled faintly, the first real smile he had seen on her face. "Then it's beautiful," she whispered. The human felt a strange warmth at her words. He tightened his grip on his bag. "We'll need to move fast. They won't let us leave without a fight." She nodded, her voice steady. "I'm ready." The escape was no longer just his idea. It had become their shared mission, and somewhere beyond the stars, a new life waited if they could reach it in time. A new life begins. The scrapyard was silent at first. Only the creak of rusted metal and the sigh of the wind through broken hulls. The human led the way across twisted beams and piles of forgotten machines. The alien girl followed close, her glowing eyes wide with both fear and wonder. "There," he whispered, pointing. The ship rested beneath a torn tarp, its hull dented, its paint faded. "But its frame still strong. If I can power it up, it will take us off this world." The girl touched the edge of the tarp with careful fingers. "It looks alive," she whispered. For her, this was not just a ship. It was a door, A promise. The human pulled the tarp away and climbed inside. Dust rose in the cabin. The controls were worn but familiar. He sat in the pilot's chair. Running his hands across the panels, "Come on," he muttered. Just one more flight. The alien girl slipped inside. Staring at the small space, "It's small," she said softly. "But it feels safe." A low hum filled the air as the ship's engine coughed awake. Lights flickered, systems stuttered, then steadied. The human let out a breath of relief. "We've got power, but outside." The sound carried. Shadows moved in the distance. Hunters, drawn by the noise, the human's face hardened. "They're here." The girl's body stiffened. Fear flashing in her eyes, she looked at him, her voice trembling. "We can't fight them all." "No," he said, his hands gripping the controls. "But we can outfly them." The first blast hit the ground near the ship. Shaking the hull, the girl gasped, crouching low. The human pressed the ignition. The ship rumbled, its engines roaring to life. "Hold on," he shouted. The ship lurched upward, metal groaning. Dust and debris scattered as the hunters fired again. Bolts of energy struck the scrapyard, lighting up the broken skeletons of ships. But the old vessel rose higher, breaking free of the ground. The alien girl clung to the seat, her eyes wide with awe and fear. The hunters grew smaller below, their weapons useless against the climbing ship. The human kept his hand steady, guiding the vessel through the sky. "Come on, old friend." "Don't fail me now," he whispered to the ship. For a long moment, it seemed the engines might give out, sputtering as the strain pulled at every bolt. But then the stars opened above them, and the planet shrank behind. The girl leaned forward. Staring through the window, her lips parted in wonder. "It's beautiful," she breathed. The darkness of space stretched endless and bright. Filled with stars she had never seen free of chains. The human glanced at her, her glowing eyes reflecting the starlight. For the first time, her face was not twisted by fear, but softened by something else, hope. He leaned back in the chair, his voice calm. "We did it." She turned to him, her voice fragile but full of meaning. "You gave me freedom." "I don't know how to thank you." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. You only needed someone to open the door. The rest is yours." Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time she smiled, truly smiled. The scars on her arms still marked her, but now they no longer defined her. The human looked out at the stars, a strange peace settling in his chest. His life had been quiet, lonely, forgotten. But the night he opened the door, everything had changed. Now he was not just surviving, he was living. And beside him sat someone who would never be called property again. The ship carried them forward, away from the hunters, away from chains, toward a new beginning among the stars. And somehow, the human knew. His life was no longer his alone, it was theirs. Asterisk, asterisk.